Kim, what's on your radar?
Well, first, before I really get started on this one, I want to mention that I hesitated quite a bit about doing this radar. I have wanted to talk about this for quite some time. I've known about the subject for quite some time, but I have hesitated greatly about talking about it. And that is because I worry that people will take out their fear on animals. And I just want to caution, please, please, please do not harm innocent animals. That being said, we do need to talk about the elephant in the room, or mink, or leopard, or cat or dog. From zoos to farms to wildlife to even domestic cats and dogs, there have been many reports of various animals of varying types catching COVID. That's right. It's possible your little furry family member might have caught COVID at the same time as you and everyone else in your family. And sometimes when animals catch COVID, it comes with dire consequences. For example, 3 snow leopards actually died from COVID at an Illinois zoo last year. Actually, one also recently died. Another one recently died this year as well. And to prevent that outcome, many zoos have begun administering the vaccine to the animals. It's a special version of the vaccine. Now, that's a much better fate than what some animals have faced. After minks on a farm in Denmark were found to have caught COVID from human handlers back in 2020, the nation ordered 17 million minks to be terminated. Why? Because they discovered the minks had contracted COVID from a human. Then the virus mutated inside the minks. Then the minks passed that mutated version of the virus back to the human handlers. So they exterminated them, and they didn't even use their fur. They buried them. Now, the CDC says there is no evidence animals play a significant role in spreading COVID, but the obvious next question is, how do they know? Are they testing animals regularly? Because humans can barely get tests. So bottom line is, they aren't looking into this, and maybe it's better that they don't, because again, I worry many animals will meet the same fate as minks when people who are trying to expel unvaccinated people from society find out it isn't just the people they need to be worried about. After all, a shelter in Australia put down over a dozen dogs that were up for adoption when they discovered they had caught COVID. Another atrocious thing Australia has done during this pandemic. So this takes me to Omicron. Now, some experts believe that Omicron may have mutated in rats. And the reason they think this is because Omicron is not related to any of the more recent mutations. It actually traces back to variants that circulated in humans over a year ago. So what leads some experts to believe it came from rodents rather than humans is the unique mutations of Omicron. The original virus that came out of Wuhan was unable to infect rats or rodents in general. In order for the virus to infect them, the virus had to develop 7 unique mutations, and it turns out all 7 are found in Omicron. So we could theoretically vaccinate all the zoo animals, and we could also get our furry family members vaccinated also. I think some people are even looking into that. But what about the white-tailed deer that have been found to be infected? What about the minks? What about the otters that have been found to be infected, and hippos? What about the rats? This has always been the issue with the idea that we could vaccinate this virus away. Other viruses we vaccinate to eradicate, viruses like measles, polio, smallpox, none of them infected animals. However, viruses like the flu, which have infected swine and birds, amongst many other animals, we've been unable to eradicate, and that's likely where we are headed with COVID. So again, I want to caution that I've known about this for a long, long time, since 2020, knowing that there's animal reservoirs, knowing that this is spreading amongst animals. It has not hit the news much. I hesitate to talk about it because I do worry that people will slaughter. We saw this with swine flu. When swine flu came out, people were slaughtering pigs. We're seeing this now with minks in Denmark, even Australia. They put down the dogs, but they also put down a bunch of hamsters. People were adopting hamsters. They found out that there was a COVID outbreak at the pet store where they bought the hamsters. The Australian government actually ordered everybody to bring their hamster back to be terminated. So I worry about this information getting out there. But the bottom line is we need to recognize this and know about it. I don't want anybody harming their cat or their dog. Yes, your pets at home can get COVID. We don't know if they can transmit it back to you again. The CDC hasn't really studied this, but Don't harm your pets. Please don't harm your pets. But the bottom line is the fact that it does go into animals, the fact that it went into minks, mutated, went back to humans. We already saw that. The fact that they think this may be Omicron spread in rats for a while before it mutated back into humans. What are we going to do? We can't find all the rats in New York.
Anything if it's rats are the source. I mean, we're trying to, in Washington, D.C., I can speak for both of us, I'm sure, the rat problem is insane. I mean, they've been trying to kill all the rats regardless of reasons having to do with COVID, and they cannot kill them. They are too big and too many.
Well, look, I read the extended reporting on minks, and it's fascinating, right? And part of what was so fascinating about it was looking at the different way this outbreak was handled in Denmark and Europe and in farms in the United States. And what was interesting is that they do have this vaccine that works for minks. Works to the same degree ours does, so it's not 100%. But what they were saying is that the unique conditions that these animals are held in, which are not regulated in the United States in the same way that animals we eat are regulated. It's very tight quarters, very easy for disease to spread. It's unhealthy for the animals. Generally speaking, they're very social creatures. And because mink are so smart, there's a lot of them that escape the farm. And that's a cluster of crap that we have to deal with because they're very likely to not only get COVID and spread it, it's transmissible from humans to the mink, but then they often escape into the wild and then affect wild mink populations. And then you get all of the diffuse spread through the wildlife community, as we've seen before. And in the article, it was talking about how the farmers had a little bit of a blasé attitude about it. They weren't choosing to wear masks because ultimately they weren't going to lose that many animals. Mink are a kind of animal that they're going to kill anyway. I mean, they're being killed for their fur, not for milking and having a longer life or, things like that. And it's really interesting. I wonder what you make of that, Kim, whether or not you think there should be more regulation to try to protect these populations in the way they're trying to do in Europe, or whether it's just a kind of a laissez-faire situation that we should let happen. Let's sleeping mink slay.
I just don't think there's anything we can do about it. So I don't even know if it's about having a laissez-faire attitude or trying to regulate it. I just think that we could try to regulate it all we want. It's not going to work. Look, we're finding the virus in otters. We're finding them in hippos, white-tailed deer in the wild. Like, how is this happening? We're getting them in cats and dogs. And, the virus, it came from bats. So it's spreading throughout not only, and we don't know, by the way, it's not just that we don't know if the bat infected not only humans, that original bat, that came from the lab, let's say, we don't know, or if it came from the wild or the soup or whatever they're thinking it came from. We don't know if that also infected animals at the same time or even prior to infecting humans. Right. There might have been a different animal, and they suspect that maybe it went from the bat to a different animal before it came to humans. So it could already be spreading like wildfire in the animal kingdom, unmitigated, unchecked, and there's nothing we can really even do about it. So I just think the takeaway for me is we're going to have to learn to live with COVID. Everybody's just going to have to get comfortable with this. It's not going away, and it's going to mutate, and it's going to come back, and we're going to have different iterations of it, like we do with the flu. We have bird flu and swine flu, and there's canine flu, and there's every year we get a different flu, and we've not been able to eradicate any virus with an animal reservoir ever.
I would be for treating animals better, treating them with respect and kindness, and not putting them in horrific conditions. Just because I support that morally, but yes, it's not going to. I mean, there might be some specific cases where better conditions for the animal will result in less COVID spread in a specific area or something, but you're right that it's not right. It's rampaging across the animal kingdom. We can't, even if we wanted to eliminate animals like rats that could be carrying this disease. We are
respect all the animals,
so far
but not
behind.
Those rats.
Yeah. We are so far, well, yeah, not rats. They're horrible. I didn't know. There is a little bit of hypocrisy in which animals get labeled cute and we protect them, and which animals are gross and horrible. And I don't even know how to square that. It's like an innate human kind of thing that dogs are cute and we want and it is wrong. Like, you're not allowed to hurt dogs. You are allowed to hurt pigs. We slaughter pigs for food. So it's random. It's kind of random.
It is random.
Yeah. I don't know. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable if you think about it for too long. I don't know. But yeah,
don't harm the animals. Don't harm the animals, everybody. Do not harm your animals.
No, I like animals. Yeah. I've come more into that direction over time, but I do still eat meat.
Yeah.
I know
and they do, by the way, say that of your house pets, I have a cat and a dog, and they say that that COVID actually affects cats more so than dogs. Like you see the symptoms. And I should say, I think that's true because back when I had it, pretty sure both of my furry animals got it and my furry family. And I will say my cat was looking pretty miserable.
You think
for a
your
while
pets
there.
had it?
Yeah, for sure. My dog was kind of sneezing and stuff, but my cat looked like she was like mouth breathing and looking miserable. And if I'd pet her head, she's like, ugh. Yeah.
Kim, I seem to recall early on one of the first things that they said was your pet can't get COVID. Is this a revision that they've made, or are there different strains of COVID that are out there that have mutated that can now affect different kinds of pets? Is it literally every human version of a virus can affect a dog, or is transmission to some of these species like mink that are more similar to us genetically incubators for variations of the disease that then can go into different kinds of populations?
With COVID specifically? I mean, I think with COVID specifically, it depends on the mutation. You know, certain mutations seem to be able to infect more. But like they said, the original strain that came out of Wuhan could not infect rodents. It actually had to mutate. But they found that alpha, beta, and delta could infect rodents. So it mutated fairly quickly to be able to infect rodents. It didn't take long before it got to that point. So I think it just kind of depends on, and we hear about these big variants, right? We hear about Omicron, Delta, but there's actually thousands of different variants that are like subvariants of the variants. And so it's probably, maybe it just mutates once in order to be able to infect whichever particular animal. But, zoos have been infected widely. Like I said, snow leopards have been particularly hit hard. It affects them worse. Like I said, cats seems to affect cats worse than other animals. So it's very interesting, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll mutate to where it can't infect certain animals, or maybe even maybe it'll mutate and it can't infect humans anymore. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be great? Well, we'll be hoping for that. Thank you, Kim. We'll have more Rising right after this.